I just, I feel like, okay, the ones I like. The ones I didn't like as much, for whatever particular reason, it was okay. I just thought that,
But are you a day one fan? Would you consider yourself a day one fan of Coltrane?
like the first time I heard him, did I like him?
No, like when he first came out.
You got to remember, he came out before I was like conscious.
I will, but conscious or not, is there artists out there that you was there day one? They first came out, their first CD came out, or their first record came out. You grabbed it, you liked it, you a fan. Because like I didn't get a chance to get Reasonable Doubt when Jay-Z's first album came out, but Terry, when he came out with Volume 2, which a lot of people kill him for, I got introduced to Jay-Z from Terry, and he didn't like it. He was one of those people that was like, "Oh, he went pop. I don't like this." Here, he was just like, "Here, you can have this." I don't even think it was his CD to give away, but obviously the person that he got it from didn't want it, and then he just gave it to me. But that's how I got introduced to Jay-Z. So when I get that album, I'm like, so I don't consider myself maybe like a day one fan of Jay-Z, even though I've heard those records that made it to radio off the first album. I would say second album on forward, I'm a fan. I'm trying to think who I was there from the beginning. I think every artist, I mean, unless you came out in the 2000s, but every artist that I've pretty much known, I probably missed their first couple albums and then stumbled on their second or third.
Wow, that's interesting. I can't say, like for instance, like the first folks who I knew in terms of an album, the first album that really struck me, that I could consciously say that pretty much I liked almost everything on it, was Smokey Robinson, Going to a Go-Go. Smokey Robinson and the Miracles.
What album is that for him?
That's one of his, I think that's like either his first or second major album with Motown.
Oh, okay. All right. So that's day one.
So that was early in his, career. In fact, I remember singing along with that album. That was the first album that I learned the lyrics to.
Okay.
That album. But I'm gonna tell you that I don't like everything
Smokey does.
That Smokey does. And politically, he came on Def Poetry Jam, and the poem that he did, I was just shaking my head, man, because it was anti-Pan-Africanism. It was like he's coming to one of those ADOS kind of mindsets, like it's about us, and he don't, it was really disparaging politically, and I was like, oh, he's one of these reactionary bourgeois Negroes, and that kind of hurt me because based on the love songs, and it's interesting, I should have known because all the poems that he did were love songs. I don't remember him writing anything politically, but that didn't stop me from liking his material, because on one level, I was just having this conversation with a good friend of mine, sister who used to be or affiliated with the Black Panther Party here in New York, and so one of the things that she said that I grew up saying, at a certain point in my consciousness, was that everything is political. So love songs, especially at a time when so many couples are breaking up, and so many aspects of African families here in this country are in disarray and because we've been under attack. Our family structures have been under attack, since 1619 here in the Western, in what is now known as the United States. Because actually, the attack on African families started even before that in other parts, in terms of the Caribbean and South America, where Africans as prisoners of war were transported to and enslaved. So that was already going in full swing in Brazil and in Haiti and other parts in South America after the Spaniards and the Portuguese, had run ramshot and were committing genocide against the indigenous people. And so they began to ship us over here, to limit our ability to escape because, the folks who were here first, if they booked, they knew where they were going. But, it's like if we booked, we were easier to find because we didn't know, and we hadn't had time to build the alliances. It took a while before we could establish alliances with folks who were misnamed Indians. So I say that to say that our family structures have been under attack. And so Black love is revolutionary. The fact that we love ourselves, the fact that we love the women in our community, the fact that they love us, and that we have, continued to work at developing strong families in spite of the crass individualism that's pushed at us, like, you don't really need her, you don't really need him, it's like that's pushed, so just stand on your own, don't be vulnerable, to that person, it's like that's pushed, and to the detriment of Black families. And I have to admit, I've been bitten by that virus myself, over a period of time, and yet I know that if it were not for Black love, we would not be here. If it were not for Black love, we would not be here. I remember I was in a play. I was one of the musicians in a play, and it was just two of us. And there was this love scene with Nat Turner and his woman, and it was a close scene. And yet, the brother who was playing piano on that particular scene, he would be playing this distorted bullshit, man. It was like really discordant. But this is a love scene. Why are you doing that? He's playing like he's some kind of monster, scene, and it was all, because we're improvising on a certain level, but, when you're doing a play, eventually, even if you're improvising, there's a certain kind of mood that you want to create for that particular scene. And every time he would do it, and I'm like, yo, man, why are you doing that? Well, we didn't have no love during that time. I'm like, yo, B, if we didn't have no love, we wouldn't have lived. We wouldn't have, no, that's what got us through that madness. We, in spite of the madness, we were able to hold one another dearly. And, but he wouldn't, do it. And I was glad that he had a short run. It was about 2 or 3 days that he wasn't there, and I got a chance to play the piano, and so the guy who came in, since he was a sub, it was like, you're okay, I'm the lead musician, I know what this calls for, I'm the lead musician on this one, so I'll play the piano on this one, and I'm going to make sure that there's some soothing music, that on that love scene, give it all I got to play some kind of music that would embellish that scene, instead of distorting it because of I got some kind of confused imagination about, the fact that we didn't have nothing, and it's like I hear people saying we lost everything, when we didn't. If we had forgotten everything, as Amos Wilson, great psychologist, he said, if we had forgotten everything, we wouldn't even know how to walk. When people have amnesia, they don't forget everything. Because again, if they forgot everything, they wouldn't know how to walk. They wouldn't know how to talk. They would forget everything.
Right.
But when you say everything, literally, that includes your physiological motor apparatus.
Right.
So obviously you don't forget everything. The amnesia means there's certain things that you forget about your past. But obviously your motor development, your ability to understand what people are saying to you, your ability to communicate with them, obviously that wasn't missed, but something shocked you into forgetting certain aspects. So it's a selective memory loss, and for whatever reason, it's psychic trauma, whatever, it's like, bam, what happened? Maybe the shock of an accident, car accident or something, makes you forget certain things, and it takes a while to recuperate. But again, you don't forget everything. So I say that to say that with this being the way that it is, and our families being under attack, it really bothered me when I said, wow, this cat writing all these revolutionary love songs, but he didn't get the other part, that we brought that love with us. It's not something that we got over here.
Did that affect you as a fan?
Oh, yes, to a degree. So, but and in another degree, it made me more understanding of why some of his later work wasn't as, because he didn't grow politically. So the songs that he was writing, he stayed in that cubbyhole.
Okay, because I was going to say, are you able to separate the music from the person who's creating the music? Because I know that's something that we're dealing with right now in hip hop, where people are not. There's a lot of people jumping off the Kanye bandwagon because of some of his political views and some of the things that he's been saying for the last 5 or so years. But he has a cult following that was there. Like, he's one of those where I would consider myself a day one. Mm-hmm. I remember me and Medina going out to go get his first album. Mm-hmm. Like, it was like, this guy is going to be the one. And then if you hear the first album, it's like, oh my God. And to hear who he is now, crazy as it sounds, he's not too much far off from that. But it was something that in the beginning where it came off as if he wasn't going to be who he is now. So I would say, even as I asked you that question, no, I probably don't enjoy his last 2 albums or 3 albums, but I rode the car until I felt the wheels were coming off.
Mm. Well, it's interesting because I remember back in the day.
Let me cut you off, but I say that to say because I feel like, yes, it's coming from the person, but the music I feel like is one thing, and the person, I guess the actual person is something different. But go ahead.
Well, there are examples of that. But what I was going to say was, I remember listening to Bill Cosby saying that he grew up in a similar situation when it came to the bebop cats, that they couldn't wait for the next album to come out, and that they would, walk around with the albums, and go to each other's houses or block parties and stuff like that. They would bring their albums, to share this. It was like, you ain't really hip unless you got this, and so they had a similar kind of relationship with Charlie Parker and Dizzy Gillespie and Miles and them, at that particular time. I came up in a time I didn't identify like that. I liked artists. They were, if it was sounding good, it was good. But I never felt obligated to like everything that any particular artist came out with, simply because I liked one particular piece that they did. Maybe that's just my personal experience, but I don't remember folks, doing that when I was coming up. Maybe it was just a generational.
When the new Miles was coming out, y'all wasn't talking about it. Y'all wasn't like, yo, he coming out this December. He about to drop.
Nah.
Okay.
Like there would be like when I first started college.
Release dates.
Huh?
Did y'all know the release dates back then?
I didn't pay attention to them. I can't say other folks didn't, but there were certain cats. Like I said, when I first started college, I ran into some music heads who hit me to jazz. And so when stuff first came out, there were cats who were up on it. I wasn't watching it like that, but they were, and they would let everybody know, oh, did you hear that new Lee Morgan hit? Like I remember when that first came out, Lee Morgan at the Lighthouse, it was like, oh yeah, man, you got to check that. And when I checked it, it was like the bomb, but also, I think part of it had to do with the cats that were influencing me when I started, because I really got into music when I started college, because I was hanging around folks that were really into music.
Okay.
But they were into jazz, which was always a thing about looking back. So it wasn't just about what's coming out. It was like what preceded it. So, and I remember when when Jimi Hendrix first came out, and there were cats. It was a drummer in a band a rehearsal band that I was a part of in my sophomore year. And the drummer, he was into Hendrix, and he was into electric. What's it? Axis Bold as Love, and what was the other one? The first one, Axis Bold as Love, and there was another one with the two white boys, and those were the hits. And at the political place that I was at that point in time, I saw him with the two white boys. I'm like, you can't be all of that, But within a year or two,
you treated Jimi Hendrix.
yeah, I kicked him to the curb with a quickness. I didn't want to hear. I didn't want to hear it. It's like I'm good. But within a year or two, when I was back on the block, and I remember a friend of mine, Mark, he hit me, and I just remember my other friend's name, Alan. Okay, anyway, Mark had Band of Gypsys, and he hit me to Band of Gypsys.
Okay.
And when I heard Band of Gypsys, I said, oh, I got to rethink this. And then I started going back to re-listen. Now, Axis Bold as Love and the other one that I can't think of the name of right now, I still wasn't too impressed with those first two albums that he came out with. But Electric Ladyland, dropping bombs, man, and now I still got certain cuts that I like better than others, but that was as a double LP, Electric Ladyland is slamming. But Band of Gypsys, every tune on that joint was slamming. Him, Buddy Miles, and Billy Cox. Man, them cats was on flame. Three cats with all that.
Are you talking about Are You Experience?
Huh?
Are You Experience?
Are You Experience? Right. Are You Experience and Axis Bold as Love. I can take them or leave them. There might be a cut or two on there,
But Electric Ladyland, Band of Gypsys, fire.
Yeah. But but Electric Ladyland, Band of Gypsys, Cry of Love, Rainbow Bridge, my 4 favorite albums by Hendrix. They're the most complete ones. Now, Cry of Love and Rainbow were produced after he made his transition, and but they still come out. His print on there is so deep. Like sometimes people try to patch things together after an artist dies and they don't really get the flavor. He had enough done so that Rainbow Bridge and Cry of Love, they're complete Hendrix albums.
Okay.
And those 4, if he didn't do nothing else on the strength of those 4, he's the man. And to this day, all the cats in that direction are still drinking from that well.
Oh, wow.
Hendrix is like, yes, Hendrix. I mean, there might be technically some cats fast, playing a whole lot of chords and stuff, but they don't have the combination of spirit and technique. I mean, and just to the point. I mean, he's Hendrix.
Right.
Be Hendrix. You can learn from him. You can cop some licks from him, but better off just be you. You got a better shot if you find your voice. But his imprint is so strong. You can hear it. All these white boys, and a whole lot of these brothers, who want to be rockers. Yeah, you got to point to Hendrix. I mean, he took it to, and at the root of it, what I learned was he's a blues man. He's a blues man. Root blues. That's our juju music. That's the core of African culture here, and out of that you can get R&B, out of that you can get jazz, out of that you can get spiritual, because blues and the spirituals and the gospel music that we came up with are two sides of the same coin. That's the coin. You flip it over and you got the other part. So one of the things that I find missing sometimes with some of the youngsters is the separation spiritually with the blues, and the spirit is not, it's not, there's a certain part of it that I kind of like, okay, sounds slick, but okay, next. But that's not to say that that's genre specific that I have that attitude about. What I find is that for me, that they're jazz cats, who technically play well, but there's something missing, and having technique alone is not all there is to being a musician.
Do you think it's era driven? Because just associating with hip hop from my end, the music now, it could be me getting older or what have you, but I wouldn't say too much of that because there's new artists now that I still like, even when they're doing rap. But like some of the rap is like, I find myself like, this ain't that. So do you think it's era driven because maybe of how you felt at that time, or they're really just not that good? Because I find like some of these artists aren't that good. So,
well, I'll say this: the test of really good music or good art, great art on any level, whether you're talking about music, whether you're talking about dance, whether you're talking about theater, whether you're talking about sculptures, paintings, the test of time. Literature, poetry, a good poem is going to resonate no matter how far down the line. There's going to be something about it that's going to resonate. Now, yeah, that being said, that's it. Like there's certain like I tell you a movie, Superfly.
Right.
When it first came out, I remember when it came out, man. I remember the theater I went to see it, and I was up in the balcony and watching people coming and going, as we were going to and as we were coming out, not just looking at people. And I realized as I'm looking out at these people, and I'm in Chicago now, I'm at this balcony on the second level, going in and out, and I'm looking at all these folks, and I'm looking at how fly we were at that time.
Right.
When the movie came out, we were fly.
Right.
Superfly was real. Then, and in Chicago, look, Chicago folks dress.
Okay.
We dressed. In the 70s, we was some dressing motor scooters, man. I mean, Chicago always look clean. So even when we got fly, we put our own style to it. And so I'm looking at that, and I remember the movie. And everybody, oh yeah, and I thought the movie was hip. Now, within this last year, I've attempted to look at Superfly. It's come on, man. It's
trash.
The movie?
Is it trash? We're not gonna say trash. We're not gonna say Superfly.
The movie is trash.
Damn.
But the music is classic. Curtis Mayfield.
Wow.
Curtis Mayfield. His music, that album, Superfly, the album.
Right.
Big ups.
Damn.
Big ups. That the music. Curtis was no joke. Curtis was serious. Yes. And with Master Henry Gibson playing congas and bongos at the same, he's got 4 drums. He's got the bongos between his legs, and he's got these drums, these 2 here, and he's going back and forth. He's developing that was his signature setup. 2 congas, 2 bongos, and the bongos, which are 2. Right. You got 4, pop, bing, 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 and he's clocking. And that drive, that rhythmic drive, to what Curtis was doing, man.
Now you're gonna make me watch Superfly.
Yeah. The soundtrack is killing.
Did you make it through the whole thing?
Well, luckily every now and then, a little sparkle, of the music would come through, but I couldn't look at the whole.
Damn.
The movie was corny, man.
Damn.
But again, it's for anything, if nothing else, to hear the soundtrack and then to hear the album. I mean, the album you hear the complete, pieces, but the album is obviously even more so, and then you really, with the album, you get a chance to pay attention to the lyrics, whereas the movie can be a bit distracting because it appears like it's glorifying this drug dealer. But if you listen to the lyrics, Curtis has got a whole nother thing going in terms of, look, this is self-destruction. We got it. There's got to be more to life than this, and his soundtrack steers the movie into any saving grace that it has.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so it's worth seeing. I would say that. It's worth seeing. You can go, on I think YouTube for free and see it.
Okay, I'm gonna watch it.
And but the music, Curtis Mayfield, man. I mean, and so much of Curtis's music is still slamming.
Right.
Curtis Mayfield, and he kept growing, as an artist. And to me, that allows you, and I say that there's some pieces that I like better than others that Curtis did. Okay. So I don't feel obligated to say, oh, I gotta like the whole album. No, this cut works, that cut don't, for whatever particular reason,
You're not gonna like.
I just happened to not like them. It wasn't saying, it wasn't like I went in there with that attitude that I'm not going to like or whatever, because I would listen to it, with an open ear, and some of them for one reason or another, it may not touch me as much as another one.
As the artist grows, do you find yourself always referring back to their old music? Where it's like, I wish they would have done that, because then after a while, it's like, even in my case, like the Locks can't keep making the same albums over and over and over.
Exactly. And see, that's the beautiful thing about Miles. Even though for a lot of people, they weren't ready for every move that Miles made.
Right.
But he kept going, and he kept moving his thing because not only because of his internal drive, but because of what he saw the music business and, what it represented and what it was. And when I say what it represented, what it claimed to, the difference between what the music business claims to be and what it actually is. That's like America. What it claims to be and what it really is, two different things. So if you don't understand what it really is, you will not be able to critique America in a way that's healthy. And I use that word specifically because a lot of us, in our community especially, I don't know about how other ethnic groups do, but in the African community here in the United States, I hear it so often, and I've heard it so often in my life. People say, I don't mean to criticize you, but. And see, I grew up in a time where criticism was good if it's constructive. Now, if it's not constructive, it's not criticism. It's an attack. A lot of people can't tell the difference. A critique is when you analyze something in an endeavor to point out the weaknesses and the strengths of what that is. Whether it be art, whether it be political thought, whether it be a cake, you critique it. Is it good? Why is it good? Why is it not good? So that's a vibe. We need that in order to improve.
People call that hating.
Yeah. But it's like, nah, critique me, make me a better person, make me a better artist, give me some insight. And some people may be attacking me, but at the same time offer something that I can learn from.
Right.
So I gotta say, this is a hater. But then I got to look at it and say, is there any truth in what they're saying? So I got to look at that. So I know they're coming from a place of hate, but at the other time, it's like, is there some truth in there that I can learn from? I got to think like that, because just because they're a hater don't mean it ain't real.
Right. That's true.
So it took me a while to do that because, sometimes, when people be hating and you recognize it, it's like, cancel all of that shit, But then it's like, oh, wait a minute. Okay, I know they're hating, but let me listen to what they say.
Right.
Don't just hear it and feel the, that drama that's coming with it. Let me listen. And if it's just hate, then you dismiss it. But, but if there's something in there that you can learn from, take every opportunity to do so. Because, what we've been taught is that a wise person can even learn from a fool. But a smart ass finds it hard to learn from anybody because they think they know it all. So if you can even learn from a fool, just because they hating, don't mean you can't learn something from them.
Right.
So that get what you can out of that and keep it moving. And criticism, and I guess one of the things that helped me, I was exposed to when I was about 16, Chairman Mao's Red Book, quotations from Chairman Mao, little red book. And in there, he talks about criticism, and one of the things that tickles me, like when I hear these idiots out here, and they're socialism, communism, blah, 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 blah. Look, ain't no economic system out here more demonic than capitalism. It is a predatory economic system. It always has been. It always will be. It's, but people are fed slogans, and so, and what we call, cliches. And they think that slogans and cliches are indications of intelligence, deep thought, and it's not. So just because it's a popular saying, doesn't mean that it's accurate. So I hear all these people anti-social. They don't know what socialism is. If they did, and when they use it, they would. At what point would they look and say, every congressman, and a congressman, they get 2-year terms and they have to be reelected. And every senator, they get 6-year terms before they get renewed, before they have to go back up for election. Do you know that all they have to do is serve one term, either as a congressman or as a senator, and they get free medical care for the rest of their life? Let me say that again. Every congressperson, male or female, every senator, with one term, they get Medicare, medical care for the rest of their life free. Well, it ain't really free because we, the taxpayers, are paying for it.
Yeah, we're paying for that.
So when they say Medicare for all, what they mean is to establish a system whereby tax monies are set up so that everybody can get medical care without having to worry about, am I going to be able to pay the mortgage, or am I going to be able to pay my rent? Am I going to feed my kids? Am I going to be able to get to work back and forth, after I pay this bill? That's not going to be a problem because in our tax monies, it's already taken care of.
Yeah. Yep.
So if socialism is good for the congressmen and the senators, what's their beef about it being good for everybody else?
Right.
But that's because people don't hear sloganism and cliches, sound bites. These are substitutes for intellectual thought, and that's the problem that we're suffering from right now, because we're not taught thinking processes, how to develop a train of thought, how to analyze, how to take apart, how to critique what's being said, and utilize that information in your interest, and hopefully that interest will be healthy. Unfortunately, some of the people who rule in this predatory capitalist system, they understand what they're doing and why they're doing, because they consider it to be in their interest to have a monopoly on access to human and material resources, so that they can have a disproportionate access to the gains, to the money that's made from exploiting human and material resources. They're greedy.
No.
They just want it all. They want to hoard it all for themselves. They don't know how to share. And as such, they're developing practices which are actually not only, down pressing the great majority of human beings, but it's, threatening the planet.
Yeah.
So getting back to what we were talking about earlier, in terms of the music, I have been fortunate that I've been exposed to a wide range of music, and one of the things that I'm really thankful for, is that I was able to run into some folk who were more well-rounded. So I ran into cats when I was my first 2 years of college. I ran into cats that were listening to jazz, that were listening to R&B, that were listening to Hendrix, that were listening, even to some of the hip white boys, But I've been prepared for that, because the Rascals, when they came out with Groovin, hey, these are some white boys, So it took a while for me to even find out about that, but it was like, I like their music. When I heard it, first time I heard them, I like the Rascals. Do I like everything that they did? No, but there's some winners along with what in their repertoire, and to this day, and I would tell you, it's funny. A lot of times, like the Isley Brothers, one of their strengths is that their ability to take a song and do a hipper version of it than the original artist did. And they were good for taking songs that white boys had written and Isley Brothers. Yeah, they,
Can you give me an example?
Wait a second. Now you got me not.
I'm trying to figure out if I've heard one of these songs, and now it's kind of.
Man.
My mind.
Lady Lay.
Okay.
Lady Lay, that's one.
So that's a remix.
That's a remix. They got a hold on for a second. I'm trying to figure out how I can do this.
I'm about to say use your phone.
Yeah. But yeah, remixes, the Isley Brothers, oh man.
Oh, the Isley Brothers did remixes before Puff Daddy, is what you're saying.
Oh, hell yeah. Wait a minute. You got to remember, the Isley Brothers, they've been around a long time. They was older than me, man. Jimi Hendrix, they hired Jimi Hendrix before he went to England. Yeah, man. The Isley Brothers been around, man. They, yeah. Jay-Z, you said before Jay-Z?
No, I said Puff Daddy.
Yeah, Puff Daddy. I think the Isley Brothers,
they
were a hit before Puff Daddy was a twinkle in his mama's eye.
Okay. Puff Daddy invented the remix. I don't know if you knew that.
Huh?
Puff Daddy invented the remix. I don't know if you knew that.
No.
Or Wyclef, maybe.
Huh?
Or Wyclef. One of the two.
Who?
Wyclef.
Oh God, you're so late. It's not even funny.
Jermaine Dupri. He's also one of the pioneers of the
Summer Breeze. That was another one.
Okay.
For the Love of You. For the love of you. That's
For
another. That's another. Yeah, yeah.
remix?
Huh?
That's a remix?
Yeah, For the Love of You. Yeah, the Isley Brothers. They.
Who sung it first so I can hear the original?
Huh?
I love that song.
I don't know. Yeah, I forgot. But Summer Breeze makes me feel fine. Flowing. Yeah, they did read that one. That lady. Who's that lady? Yeah, that was a remix.
And they the other version because now they all I hear is that version.
Well, yeah, the Isley Brothers, because they wiped the other one out the map.
They did it. Wow.
Huh? Yeah, Jimi Hendrix did that to Bob Dylan on All Along the Watchtower. Oh, the version on Electric Ladyland, the version that Hendrix does on with All Along the Watchtower. Bob Dylan didn't even play the tune in it. He wouldn't even play it anymore until after Jimmy died. That's how strong that was. Yes. Go hear Jimmy's version on Electric Ladyland, and then try to listen to Bob Dylan's.
Okay, is it the same song title?
Yeah, All Along the Watchtower. All Along the Watchtower. Yeah. Jimmy clap.
Wow.
Give me that too. You don't know what to do with it.
Oh my God.
Yeah. But the Isley Brothers, yeah, they were known for that, for doing, doing that. Yeah.
All right. So I'm gonna listen to that.
Yeah. But Summer Breeze, For the Love of You, that lady, those right off the top here. Yeah. And but I brought that up to say this. The Rascals, they did a song, Groovin.
Yeah.
I ain't never heard nobody top that, their version. I've heard people do other versions.
Oh.
I ain't heard one top that yet.
Okay.
That original version by them white boys, that was a mix.
Okay.
Clocking.
All right.
And like for instance, the Beatles, they did this tune, Eleanor Rigby, right?
Okay.
Go listen to Ray Charles's version. Scary.
Oh wow!
It's like to have that much music in 3 minutes, it was definitely less than 4. It's like to have that much music in there. Ray Charles's version. You'll listen to the Beatles, and it's not bad. The Beatles not bad, but Ray.
Wow.
Man, Ray does the thing. He does the thing with that, But we come from a deeper well. We come from a deeper well, a cultural well,
We should. This will be our music episode. What do you say about the artists who may, I wouldn't say not grow, but has found a groove, knows what his or her fans like, and continue to stay in that range where it may not show musical growth, but it is, because it's not exactly the same song over and over and over, but they're staying in a pocket where, because look, my fans like this, they like when I do this.
Well, I would hesitate. I'll put it this way. Every musician is not an artist.
Okay, right.
So the fact that somebody has the skill to sculpt materials doesn't make them an artist either. So, and to dance, some people know steps. Some people are dancers.
I got you. Yeah, that is something I tell my wife all the time. Like sometimes, we're watching a live performance, I can count the steps with even though I don't know the material, I can still count the 1, 2, 4, 6, 8.
Mm-hmm.
But there's some dancers you can't count it. It's a feeling. So I definitely understand what you're saying.
Yeah. So, with that in mind, I guess
sometimes you can even see them counting.
Yeah. Relax. But some, they just in the flow, and they've done their homework to the point where, like, one step leads to the next, and they're just in the flow. They're in the spirit. They're creating in the moment.
Mm-hmm.
Sonny Rollins. he's like that, you know, and he's always on the edge. So there are times when he's on the edge, and some people say, "Oh, that wasn't as good as his other version." Well, he wasn't trying to do that other version. He was trying to do the next version, you
Right.
know. So he's taking chances, you know. So I guess if somebody stays in their lane because of what other people think, then I find that suspect. Some people stay in their lane because that's where their heart is, and they found this groove and they're gonna milk it to the max. They're not doing it, quote unquote, because the fans like it. They're doing it because they like it.
Okay.
I think there's a difference. So if they chasing coins, I'm not impressed. But if they're chasing sound and spirit, I think the growth will show, even if they're singing the same song 20 years later, because it's not going to sound exactly the same. And you're going to hear the growth. You're going to hear the growth in the phrasing, the nuances. You know, there are going to be some things because they've lived life to whatever particular degree, and then they say, "Oh, wow, I can sing that same song, but I can do it like this." And when you get a chance to hear them live, but you have some folks who have always been jukeboxes. So they'll repeat the same song over and over and over and over and over and over and over again. Don't grow. And yeah, well, you know, that's where you at. That's where you at. But you know, I'm not. That don't impress me. And at the same time, just because you're doing something different, don't mean you're doing something better.
Right. Right.
You know.
Yeah.
So sometimes, you know, sometimes different is just different.
Yeah.
You know, don't necessarily mean that it's better or capable of reaching a wider audience. And simply because it doesn't reach a wider audience doesn't mean it's not better. It just means maybe it's going to take people a time, you know, longer time to catch up. Stevie Wonder, man,
Me and Dan, we just went down listening to some of his earlier work, and I'm like, and he owns all his music. He owns the publishing, the masters.
Well, not all, but a lot, most of it. Yes, he made that move after the songbook, I think it was. Because when he came out with Innervisions, by then he owned it.
Okay.
Anything after Innervisions, he owns.
All right, so anything before that is what, a split with Motown?
Yeah, split with Motown, and maybe the first album or so, he was just getting performers' rights. He wasn't getting writers' rights. But once he started writing, you know, then that took him to another zone. And then he went on strike from Motown and just went in the shed, was writing until he was able to restructure the contract, and then starting with Innervisions, everything is his.
Wow. Okay. That catalog is crazy.
Crazy. And even the stuff that he did before, you know, like My Cherie Amour. And so, I mean, there's some songs that he did before Innervisions that were definitely off the hook. You know, Stevie, you know, was a protege. Fingertips. I went back and listened to Fingertips, you know, as a teenager. He was rocking it, man. He was rocking it. But he benefited because Motown put him with some master musicians. Stevie didn't go to Juilliard. He went to the University of Detroit. And when I say that, I mean Detroit has a particular sound when it comes to R&B that Motown is the. You can't think about Detroit R&B without thinking about Motown. That's
right.
You know, but the jazz. Man, you got some artists coming out of Detroit smoking for a long time. And I would go so far as to say that when it comes to bebop, only New York has a deeper range of bebop musicians. Bebop in Detroit, fierce. Them cats, Barry Harris, Elvin Jones, his brothers, Tad Jones, and what's the oldest brother's name? The piano player, Hank Jones, Tad Jones, trumpet and composer, and Elvin, master drummer, with eventually his high with John Coltrane, and then there's so many others. Just read, if I'm not mistaken, Chambers. Oh man, what's his name? First name. It'll come to me in a minute. Chambers. Paul Chambers, out of Detroit. So many, and then the bass player with Motown. Ah, man, slap myself for his name will come to me. Anyway, that Motown sound. Yeah, I got to. Because Doc, if I don't, Doc will hunt me down and say, "You couldn't remember his name?" And I was like, "I'm just having a senior moment here."
Oh man, yeah, I was like, Stevie could have stopped after like album 5 or 6, and been good. Because like those first we was listening to those first like 5 or 6 albums. I was like, oh my
god. What, Stevie?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Classic. Just classic. Yeah.
James Jamerson.
James
Jamerson.
For too. Yeah.
Master bass player. Yes, his sound throughout Motown. Whoa, yeah. James Jamerson. He's the R&B bass. James Jamerson.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, there's so many different folk, out of that, between the R&B and the jazz situation, in Detroit. They got some power cats, really, 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 really powerful. But again, so the mix, see, the difference is that so much of what comes out of hip hop has been separated from some of the other creative music genres to a degree that never happened before. So the cats in R&B were interacting with the cats who were playing jazz.
Oh, so okay. I get what
it was happening on a more profound and consistent level and widespread level. So you would have cats who were jazz musicians, but they doing the R&B gig because that's where the money was. And then you had certain R&B cats, because they're hearing these cats in their band who could do all of this stuff. Then they learn that it then widens their range of expression, even though they're committed to R&B.
Right.
Stevie's committed to R&B, but he can play giant steps.
Okay, but.
And Giant Steps by John Coltrane, which is Academy high art, and when Stevie's playing it, he ain't taking no slouch. He ain't slouching to nobody,
right. You don't take sampling as our way of intermingling, because there was times in them in their way of sampling Trices, for me, not only having you in the house, but also saying, well, where they get that from? Because a lot of times back then, not so much now, but back then, you would read the books and you would see the listed writers, and then you would see in there, it's like sample from, and it would say the track, and you'd be like, oh, that's where they got that from. Yeah. Now you got to go back and go hear that R&B song, or now you got to go back to hear where they got the sample from.
Well, see, that's the problem I have. I'm glad that you're saying that. You said you got to go back, but based on what and the conversations that I'm having, so many of the fans of hip hop don't go back, and so if you tell them that so and so actually wrote that, they're like, "What you talking about? This guy, he wrote that." No, he didn't.
Well, I'll say this: in my era, they sampled more. now in hip hop, because those older records is a lot of times that the people who made those records, they don't want to be sampled because of what they're saying in the album. There's tracks when you get the album, whoever they sample won't let you curse. You're saying this about women, you can't use my music. And so now they're making like fresh new stuff where now they don't even sample anymore.
Well, I think that's one reason. I think the other main thing is too, because as cats got aware that their music was being sampled, they wanted to get paid.
That's a fact too. That's a fact.
That's a major fact. All right. Now, to the degree that, you know, folks were saying in terms of profanity, in terms of dissing women, in terms of anti-African, you know, and stuff like some just totally dysfunctional kind of lyrics that like really, oh man, you know.
So you
Yeah,
sample your music if you didn't like what they were saying on the track, even though you're gonna get paid.
it would depend on what they said. I'd have to listen to it. Yeah, it would, that would make a difference. So I mean, like, you know, no, you can't be attacking black women and use my music for it. No,
Okay.
if you're gonna do it, use somebody else's. You know, I'm not gonna put my stamp of approval on that.
Okay.
I mean, certain things you just got to draw the line.
They like people like Phil Collins, that In the Air Tonight. He, anytime you sample that, he gets damn near 100% of that record.
And what's the name of it? In the what?
In the I Can Feel It Coming in the Air Tonight.
Oh yeah, okay,
yeah. That track, whenever you sample it, he gets damn near like 100% of the track that you made. So now you're not even really getting paid off of it anymore. You're gonna make your money on the road, performing it for a live crowd. But anytime they play it on a CD, if you sell a record or anything to do monetary wise that comes from the record outside of performing it, he get all that.
All of it?
And I didn't even know that he made that track from top to bottom. Like, he's writer, producer, all of that.
I'm not surprised at that because, you know, depending on how many instruments you play and, you know, how skilled you are, I can see that because he's a multifaceted musician. But you know, hey, the fact that anybody would want to sample his stuff, maybe they figured they got a version that's going to be a hit and they put their name out there, you know.
One of the tracks that Puffy used, that's where I found that out. Every breath you take, every time you make, that Puff ain't getting none of that. He had to make that on the road. Phil Collins let me get all of that.
I hear you. That'll make folks think 3 and 4 times about sampling somebody's stuff. You know, yeah. And
but then you know, just like, don't touch my music. Like I forgot her name because she just got into a court case with Nicki Minaj, and Nicki had to take her to court and let her know, like, no, I never sold this song. This is something they put on mixtapes. They just heard me rap over it, and she wound up winning the case. But she's famously known, like, don't touch my music.
Well, you know, business-wise, I get it. You know, because for too often, you know, musicians have been pimped, you know, in that manner. So it's like, you know, that's abusive behavior, you know, and there've been too many examples of musicians who died damn near penniless behind, you know, these other folks who wouldn't know a note from a hammer, you know, and yet and still they're going to the bank, you know, with their names on somebody else's creative work.
Right.
You know, so yeah, I think that needs to be addressed. In regard to the way that these lyrics, you know, have been utilized and music has been utilized, you know, this is something that has been that, as far as I know, was first really challenged in terms of the bebop era. So what cats would do is, if they played a song, you know, like How High the Moon, you know, and they played that song, and then the person who originally wrote How High the Moon would get paid because of royalties.
Right.
But they couldn't copyright the chord changes. So what bebop cats started doing was writing their own melodies. So Charlie Parker would write a tune like Ornithology, and now it's his tune. And then they began to manipulate some of the chords so that they developed a way of dealing with substitute chords. So all the chords wouldn't be in the same order, that the original composition was done. By having these substitute chords, they had a certain amount of differentiation, and then the bass line and everything else would be affected and infected by the chord changes, such that it would become a new song. That's how they got through with that. So they still had to utilize their own creativity, and that was a way of doing it. For instance, you got a tune called Lady Bird, and then another version would be Half Nelson. All the Things You Are, and then not Bear Harris. Tenor sax alto player. Jimmy Heath. He wrote a composition using all the things you are, chord changes, but he comes up with another melody, and then it's his particular tune. So that was done, and a lot of blues tunes, would change lyrics and become another song, and they'd alter it a little bit, and sometimes they wouldn't even alter the music at all. They would just all change the lyrics, then it becomes another song. So these particular strategies, are not unknown. And so many songs that you'll find that back in the day, before copyright became a thing, there's so many songs that would have the same melody even, but they would change the lyrics. And that's music has always been like that. Art is like that. People are always influenced by other things, but it's how well you do it. Right. How well you utilize those influences, become important at that point.
How long should an artist wait before they come out with their next album? When your first album came out in 1990, do you come back out? Because now, this is a two-parted question. Right now, during the pandemic, you can't tour. You can't really.
Well, that's not totally true. There are folks who are touring.
As far as the venues that they're used to,
right?
It's not.
Right.
It's not.
It's not thousands and thousands and thousands. No, those big tours.
Right. So, do you come out with new music as try to flood the market with new tunes, or do you pull back? But at the same time, in this era, you have this it's almost like a microwave era, where basically it's you got to come out fast, and because as soon as your album dropped, we liked it for a week, and now we're asking you when's the next one coming
out. I don't think that those, particular. I don't think there's any one particular way that it depends on the artist, and it depends on how prolific writers they are. I don't think there's any one particular answer to give to that question. I think that although some people do have those kind of deadlines on themselves and impose on themselves, generally what it leads to is a flood of material that is not as good as previously. Sometimes artists can come out with albums, each and every year. For instance, if you look at from Innervisions into Fulfillingness into Songs in the Key of Life, for about 3 or 4 years,
Yeah, or every 2 years at max.
Yeah, but no, well, Stevie, because he was winning the Grammy Awards for about 2 or 3 years. He was winning all of them. So Innervisions, Fulfillingness, and then Songs in the Key of Life. They came back to back to back, and he was winning everything. And by the 4th year, when somebody else finally won one, I remember whoever won, they said, "Thanks, Stevie. You didn't record this year." That was on the Grammy Award. So that was wild. Everybody started hollering too, because they knew exactly what it meant, because Stevie had gangstered it for about 3 years in a row. He was winning everything in terms of made the best album, best song. You know, it was like a rap. You know, but the thing of it is, like I said before, during the time that he was on strike from Motown, that year, a couple of years, he was writing. He was in the shed, man. He was writing. And sometimes he just, lay a part of a tune and didn't know where he was going to go, but he got it somewhere where he's going to come back to it and just, and experimenting with what would become the synthesizer, the way that it is now. He was taking it, to another level than the cats he was working with. So look, Stevie was shedding heavy. And when he came out, he had a whole bunch of material. There's songs in what's that? The album that the song about Martin Luther King tune is on there, and he wrote this tune for Bob Marley, and because Stevie wrote reggae tunes. In fact, Third World. He wrote one of their hits. Now that we found love, what are you gonna? That Stevie wrote that. He wrote a tune for Gary Bart's Black Maybe. Bad tune. This is, Black Maybe. Maybe you just talking trash. I was like, whoa. Stevie wrote some political stuff, man. He didn't always release his most political stuff. Sometimes other artists would do, so, but yeah, he was constantly writing. And now, I mean, after a while, some of the stuff you can say, okay, the albums aren't as strong as his previous albums, but he's still got some gem as far as individual tunes, that are still there. And of course, I don't know to what degree, or how the COVID thing is affecting him, but in terms of his bands, man, his live concerts, man, go on YouTube and you hear some of the stuff that these cats were doing, man. He was rewriting some of his own stuff, and coming up with different arrangements for them, and to what degree some of those arrangements were coming on the spot, and to what degree they were rehearsed, and some of the things it was obvious they had rehearsed. His bands.
Okay, so let me ask you this question. Now that you bring that up, this is another question. I didn't think we was going to talk about this. Do you like re-renditions of songs?
Yeah, depending. Sometimes, not I can't say all the time, because there's some re-renditions. No, first version was cool,
So we went to a concert to go see Lauryn Hill, and allegedly, I don't know if this is true or not, she's gotten so much flack about her first album that they say that she doesn't really own it, because she originally came out and said that she wrote, produced all this music, and then a company came out and said, no, we were the musicians, we helped you write. And so now it's kind of like, that's probably one of the reasons why she went away for such a long time. She hasn't really come out with much music since, but right now the first album,
The Education of Lauryn Hill,
right, classic. So see her about a couple years ago, she really doesn't perform the songs as the album. And so then I went digging, because I'm like, all right, why doesn't she do this? And I wound up on an article where it's like she doesn't want to continue to perform the song as is. She wants to play with the song. She wants to, redo it. But we want to hear the album.
Well, I think that.
But
if she's compelled to do that because of that flack that she caught, in terms of giving everybody their due credit, which some people, believe me, there are other bands where somebody who's like the headliner in the band, and then when they out there on their own, it ain't sounding as good, because you realize that their crew was really helping them, So in this particular case, she was marketed, and the cats that were with her, they marketed her as this writer, singer, songwriter.
Right.
That was a part of the marketing, thing. And yet and still, that's not who she was at the beginning.
Right.
So, yeah, so she went for it and paid a price, I guess, because then it becomes a matter of like, oh, wow, well, so what can I do now? I keep pushing this. I can't keep pushing it the way that it was marketed. So let me see what I can do, maybe the lyrics that she wrote and just trying to find another way to say it.
Yeah, because it's like,
which can be done, but you got to be a musician to do it.
Right. And she constantly changes band members. Like she's known for like firing people right after the show. Like, you know what I mean? But it's like, we want to hear the song, and what you're trying to do. I'm pretty sure that the band is like find themselves because they know the track so much. It's like they want to play it, and she's like, "No, we're not doing that. We're doing this version." And it's like,
not only that, sometimes artists like that are intimidated by some of the musicians because
I didn't think about that, but yeah, I bet that's probably it too. Yeah.
Yeah.
Like you're trying to overcreate, and it's like, fam, don't reinvent the wheel.
Right. Well, not in this case, it's not so much reinventing the wheel. It's like the musicians are ahead of the artists, the name artists, musically. Their skills, their technical skills, and their range of expression is more developed. So then the artist who's the lead one can't figure out what they're doing. And because they can't figure it out, that means they can't control it. And so then because they can't control it, they're intimidated by it. So then there's like, no, you got to, like, Little Richard fired Jimi Hendrix. He said, there's only one flamboyant artist in my band. Jimmy got fired, and it's like, look, when the Isley Brothers got him, they were like, they didn't care. He was the cat they wanted to work with. They knew that him being with them was going to pay off for everybody, right. But that was just before he broke. And then once he broke, he next thing you know, he went to England by himself. But there are other artists, with like, that kind of stuff has happened, and sometimes like you'd have situations where like you have a name artist and then so they're on tour, but as a part of the tour there's an opening artist, mm-hmm. and there were times when the name artist would fire the opening artist because they were taking over the show. They're opening up and say, no, I'm the star. They got to go get somebody who's good but not as good.
I heard that happens a lot in comedy. Like,
yeah,
get too many laughs.
Yeah. Now you have somebody like James Brown, who was not known for his musical literacy, but mm-hmm. James was. I remember one time I saw him on the one of these talk shows, and so he comes on and it's basically James. He's got maybe one or two of his musicians, but the band that was the house band was the main band. So James comes on, he does his thing. He's got a couple of his horn players, because they know all the hits where he wants them. And he's bam, 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 bam. And then he dances. He got this thing that he's doing, and he dances over to the keyboard. And the keyboard player was playing organ. He had keys, organ and one piano, right? So James dances over there, moves him over from the piano, and makes this run. And that guy like to broke his neck trying to look at his hands and see what he just did, because he was like, "Whoa, what was that?" And then James Scott, James was a man, was a musician. Everybody talk about, they didn't like the way he sang, and well, he can dance, but he was a musician and a band leader, and as such, he could tell people what he wanted, where he wanted it. What he wanted and where he wanted it, and he, he was the one who influenced. Are you familiar with Fela?
Fela, yeah.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Fela gets the concept from Afrobeat that becomes Afrobeat. Fela got that from James, not the other way around.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And Fela owns up to it, because Fela says, when he was hanging out here in the States, got with his sister, who had been a member of the Black Panther Party, He hooks up with her, and she hooks him, takes him around, all of that. And when Brown took him to another zone, that's when he goes back and develops what becomes Afrobeat.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah. And I've talked to some folks, from Nigeria, and they try to swear, no, James Brown was older than Fela, and he was out there a lot longer, and he was already into that funk, that dance thing. And Fela says, read Fela's book, read his autobiography.
Okay.
Hear what he says, and not autobiography, but the biography where he's quoted, literally, he's quoted as saying this. So this is not like the author says this about it. I think he was, influenced. No. This is what he says, and you listen to, the documentaries, and there's a one documentary with the sister that he was going with, and she's Brown. That was the cat. I took her to see all these folks. Okay. So, and it's nothing wrong because Fela does something. He was more political than Brown ever was.
Gotcha.
That process didn't come out of his head, but for a minute. When he was talking about "Say it loud, I'm black and I'm proud." Look, Brown was not a revolutionary by any means. He wasn't. He was a genius. He was a classical musician. Now here we have to make the distinction. First of all, we should never allow anybody to diminish our music by not acknowledging those artists in our community who write classical music.
Mm.
So anytime somebody says, you ask me, what kind of music you play? I play classical music. What kind of music you play? I play classical music. What kind of music do you play? Like, tell me what kind of music you play, because if James Brown ain't a classical musician, there are none.
Right. Okay.
If Aretha Franklin ain't a classical musician, there are none. If John Coltrane is not a classical musician, there are none. If Betty Carter ain't a classical musician, there are none. If Mary Lou Williams ain't a classical musician, there are none. If Count Basie and Duke Ellington aren't classical musicians, there are none. If Sarah Vaughan ain't a classical musician, there are none. I'm really, really clear. Big Mama Thornton, if she ain't a classical musician, they ain't none. Howlin' Wolf, Muddy Waters.
Mm-hmm.
If they ain't classical musicians, then there are none. Because what we're talking about, when we deal with the terms, it's like that just means the best of.
Right.
What makes Marvin Gaye a classical musician is that his music is still here all these years after he's gone. And people, when you play one of his songs, kids recognize it.
Right.
So that is going to be the telling tale with these hip hop artists. If their grandchildren put on their songs and say, "Oh yeah,"
Mm-hmm.
So now, when people have an Earth Day party, and let somebody in our hood not go into the version "Happy Birthday to you, Happy Birthday." You can't sing that song in no black in the hood unless you go to that version. You might start out with the corny one.
Yeah.
You got to go to that. You got to go to Stevie's version.
Yeah. That's a fact. Classic.
That's a classic tune.
Right.
And it's gonna be that way, because it is. He done, he gangster, that, and now it is what it is.
That's what's up.
Even though they only quoting the chorus now, they're not the verses. They don't really, the da da baby ba, they don't sing that part. But the chorus, happy birthday, happy. Everybody knows that.
Right. That's a fact.
You know, and like, you know, even now, you know, you sing a tune like "I've Got Sunshine on a Cloudy Day." You can go a lot of different places. Everybody recognize that. They know what you're gonna say even before you finish singing.
That's a fact.
You know, they might not remember that David Ruffin was the lead singer on that particular cut with the Temptations, Motown. They might not remember all of that, but they know that song.
They definitely know that song.
And that's what makes it distinguishable. And that's one of the things. What we need to understand is that the cultural well that we drink from, we brought with us. Let me say that again. The cultural well that we drink from as Africans in this settler state, colonial, apartheid, genocidal state that we now reside in, we are who we are in spite of, not because of. The greatness that African peoples here in this country have exhibited over and over and over and over again, you know, is in spite of. Because at every opportunity, the dominating ethnic groups and class hierarchies within that ethnic group have done everything that they could to limit our cultural expressions. They are at war with Africanness. And there are those of us who have been infected with that particular virus. But that cultural well reaches back across that continent. And it couldn't be any other way. I mean, you got to stop and think about it. You know, we're the oldest people on the planet in terms of direct lineage. Direct lineage. African people. We're the oldest people. We're the most genetically developed people on the planet because we have the oldest consistent genetic stream to the origin. It's not my opinion. It's science. And the ruling class in this country, ethnically and militarily, economically, the ruling class in this country are deathly afraid of us becoming us unapologetically. That's really what they're afraid of. When they saw what we were capable of doing within 5 to 10 years after the war between the states in the 1860s, they saw what we were capable of doing from 1865 to 1875, 776. They were like, no, we got to stop this because we'll lose control. And they were more concerned with losing control than they were about developing as constructive planetary citizens. That was not what they were about. They wanted to keep control, no matter what it costs. And then, unfortunately, you know, we've been infected with this virus where we think that practicing some sort of newfangled, and it's not even new, but dysfunctional isolationism, you know, from our other brethren and sisters. You know, when people start coming up with these concepts of ADOS, as if, you know, when they talk about Kamala Harris, you know, and say, well, she not no real black person. She's as black as you get. You know, what people, first of all, you know, the only difference between her daddy, you know, who was born in the Caribbean, and Africans here is that the boat stopped in different places.
That's it. That is it.
So, you know, where come on, let's keep it real. You know, we didn't come over here with passports. We didn't come over here. We didn't leave Africa and say, man, if I can just get over to America, you know, I can work on that plantation for a couple of centuries, and then my great, 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 great grandkids might have a come on, man. That ain't what wouldn't happen. You know, and we think about the price that all Africans, because when it comes to reparations, reparations is not just something that we as Africans in the belly of this particular beast are due. Africans all over the planet are due reparations. Africans all over the planet are due reparations. The repairing of the trauma and the devastation that has been imposed, the crimes against humanity, our humanity. We've suffered them all. They got regional variations. And you got some of us, you know, who got the accent that we're using here right now. And you go to Jamaica, you got a different accent that's been influenced by, you know, the British. You got some that got accents in Haiti and Martinique, you know, influenced by the French. You got, you know, accents in Brazil influenced by the Portuguese because we're speaking the vocabulary of their language. But in each case, no matter which of these foreign languages that we were infected by, we all developed an African approach to those languages, such that all of them have African approaches to those languages. So if you go to Brazil, the way that Africans speak Portuguese and the way the Europeans speak Portuguese is different. Mm-hmm. Wherever you find, and you go the same thing. If you go to Mozambique, if you go to Angola, same thing. African speaking Portuguese, but it's not exactly the same. You got, you know, that the way them Portuguese on that little speck on an island, you know, on the top of that peninsula, the Iberian Peninsula, which was originally the Iberians, by the way, are black people, the original Iberians who that peninsula is named after. That includes Portugal and Spain. The Iberians were black people, but that's another story. So, but the Africans in Haiti, Martinique, and in Senegal, and in Mali and Guinea, they might be speaking of a more fluent French than some of the French in some cases, the ones who go to school. But the ones on the block who speaking French is deeply indebted to the African grammatical structures that we brought to the plate with it. So our approach is definitely going to be different.
That's a fact.
And we put our footprint on all of these different things from an African way.
That's why they call it broken English. Ebonic.
Yeah. Yeah. But it's just a different language.
That's a fact.
Because it has a different grammatical structure. That's how languages are defined, not by vocabulary, but by grammar.
Give them music suggestions, whatever you want to do.
I would say that the reason that our music has been so strong, as opposed to some of the other things endeavors that we've done here in this country, the reason why it's so strong in terms of music, dance, poetry, storytelling, the reason it's so strong because we were not obligated to regurgitate foreign expressions. In our music, you hear the maintenance of Africa. Duke Ellington said it when they asked him what kind of music that he acknowledged that it was an African music that he was producing, and that because of that clarity, he was able to utilize foreign influences without being overwhelmed by them. And as the song said, don't mean a thing if it ain't got that swing. And so he kept that there. And if we learn from the geniuses in those artists who were not only technically proficient, but were also in alignment with African spirit, that's the only way we can move forward. We need technical proficiency and genius. We need that, to be technically proficient at whatever science we develop. But we also need spiritual, because for us as African people, they're intertwined. And that spirit, the African spirit, as long as we keep that connected and don't take it for granted, which means that we have to study our culture. We have to study our history. It's in the music. It's in the dance, if we would only listen. It's like, I have some students, and I was telling them a story earlier today. And after I finished the story, I was reminded that, the students asked, well, is that a true story? I'm like, huh? Yeah, I mean, do turtles talk and all of that kind of stuff? Is that a true story? I said, there's truth in every story. No, you heard what I said. Do turtles talk? Do trees and the stream, do they have conversation? I said, nature is always talking. The question is, are we listening? For us, the thing that our ancestors are always talking to us. The question is, are we listening? If we listen to our ancestors, we'll be able to deal in the present and plan for the future more efficiently and constructively. But a people without their history is like a tree without roots. It can bear no fruit. And I think that the degree to which we're damaged is the degree to which we forget.
Gotcha. Well, make sure that you wear a mask. Make sure that you wash your hands. I got some homework to do. I'll be listening to Electric Lady.
Ladyland. Electric Ladyland. That's the name of the album.
Electric Ladyland. I got those two to listen to. It's what was the other one? Because I did pull it up.
Which one? By who?
I'm going to listen to Jimi. This
Oh yeah, Electric Ladyland. Listen to that album and Band of Gypsys. That's those two albums. And Curtis Mayfield, the soundtrack.
All right, so I gotta watch Superfly and I gotta listen to the soundtrack. So I got 3 albums and a movie to watch before we come back. Right now, I have been listening to Jeezy has a new album, The Recession 2. I've listened to that.
Now you gotta send me a list. Text me a list of some stuff that I should be listening to.
Okay. Do you want new or you want old? Okay.
I'll do a mix for you. You do a mix for me.
All right, bet. All right. So we'll be sending you. So far, we're gonna start off light. I'll send you Kanye's first album.
Okay.
We'll do that. And yeah. So those are the 2 things. This was our music episode. Thank you for joining us. Today I kind of played. You talk more, but today I kind of played Batman. Oh. All right. Love you, Pop.
Hey, I love you too, always and forever, which is the name of a song, right? Always and forever.
All right.
Yeah, so we can apply these songs. Black love is revolutionary.
Definitely. Yeah, we'll go from there, and then we'll be back for another episode next week or in 2 weeks, one or the other. 2 weeks. All right, in 2 weeks.
Right. The first week will be our study week, and then so that that gives us a week to prepare because we both got crowded schedules and whatnot.
Gotcha. All right. Love you, Pop.
Love you too. Nope, not lie.
Not lie.
Jama jam.
Jama jam.
Sandal.